generations to come.
Welcome to another edition of the TDN Writers Room. My name is Bill Finley. I'm a correspondent for the Thoroughbred Daily News. Also co-host the Down the Stretch radio show with Dave Johnson on SiriusXM Radio.
Hi, I'm Randy Moss with NBC Sports, fresh off the Preakness and fresh off an explanation from Bill Finley off camera here about dude wipes. As someone who was on the telecast and doesn't get to see the commercials, I had no idea what the heck anybody was talking about. What is a dude wipe? But now I know. Thank you.
Now you know.
No, well, next week we're going to give you a hat. We're going to get one of those hats that says "Dude Wipes," and we'll just send it to you. I'm Zoe Cameron with First Racing here. I'm at the top of the Fasig-Tipton Pavilion in Timonium. They're about to start the sale in about 10 minutes. So if you can't hear me, there will be a good reason why not.
Maybe Bill can send me part of his supply of dude wipes and I can just try them out and see what, it's all about.
The dude wipes are in the mail, trust me.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yes.
Can't wait.
Isn't that a bit sexist, though? Dude wipes? I mean,
I don't understand. Why couldn't a female use them too? I mean,
I'm sure that chick wipes might be next.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that's what they'll use to advertise at the Kentucky Oaks next year, or something like that. All right, so what do you want from the Preakness? Mainly, you want to see the Derby winner win, because then they go on to the Triple Crown this year. It would have been Saratoga, and it'd be fantastic. Mystic Dan ran a great race, but if you couldn't have that, and forget about the betting aspects of whether you bet on the winner or didn't bet on the winner, if you want a great story, my goodness, did we get one. 88-year-old Wayne Lucas, who people 5, 6, 7 years ago thought was absolutely finished in this business. Not only is he not finished, he comes in and wins a Triple Crown race with Cease the Gray for MyRacehorse. Michael Behrens, their CEO, will join us a little bit later. Randy and Zoe, you've both known Lucas for years and years and years. But I shake my head. How is this guy doing this? And what a great thing that he is. He's an inspiration for all us old guys. It's still getting the job done at 88 years old.
Yeah, when Oxbow won the Preakness, people kind of thought at that point that, wow, Wayne Lucas is still winning a Triple Crown race. That's unbelievable. And they thought he was, on the downside and kind of washed up then. And it was like a decade ago or plus. And so now to see, 88-and-a-half-year-old Wayne Lucas, it's not just Seize the Gray. I mean, he had a very good Oaklawn Park meeting, made a lot of money at Oaklawn. His entire stable has been on the upswing over the last 12 months and even the last couple of years. So, yeah, I mean, we've talked about it on this podcast about how, from a common sense perspective, and Wayne's talked about it too, you would think that the more experience you have training racehorses, the better off you would be, as long as you maintain the energy level that's needed to handle the stable and the owners and things like that. And as far as energy goes, I mean, Wayne is still at the barn at 4:30 in the morning. He still gets on his pony every morning at age 88. He hasn't slowed down very much in that regard.
And he most certainly prides himself in still getting on the pony at 88. If it was up to him, he'd draw his last breath on that pony. I mean, if it was truly up to him. But he really is remarkable to still be out there. He will still beat everyone to the barn in the morning. I think he was joking at the Alibi breakfast here with Kenny McPeak and saying, well, I was there at 4:00. And then he goes, well, I'll just meet you there at 9, Kenny, when you get in there. It was he's very sharp, very witty, just throwing jabs at everyone. And it was truly delightful to see him win. And people forget that he's had a good team that have been with him a long time. Bass Nickel has been his long time assistant, an English guy who's been there as long as I've ever known. Miguel's been with him for years now. He drives the van. He gets on horses. He doesn't really get on him. Does just about everything. It's a tight-knit community in the D. Wayne barn. And I'm just delighted that he's made a home for himself at Oaklawn Park, where he really is revered at Oaklawn now. And that is going to be his winter base. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, let's just not forget, he's the guy who changed the game. He's definitely the guy that changed the game. I can remember shipping out to Hollywood Park with the Hoss for Michael Dickinson to run in the swaps. I'd never been to California, and I'd seen these pictures of this white shed row with D. Wayne Lucas, and I remember leading him down to school in the paddock and we had to walk by his barn. And I was just like looking over my shoulder, and I'm like, so much white. How do they keep it all clean? And the stalls were banked 4 foot deep, and the shed rows were pristine. It was like another world, like something I had never seen before. And that was 1995. I'll never forget that moment, just staring down his shed row and thinking, wow, this is how they do it in America. This is brilliant.
A funny story about Wayne at 88 and kind of what he's like at 88 and how he doesn't really like to be 88. I mean, he does get on his horse in the morning, and the only concession to his age is that he has a little step ladder or step stool there to get on the horse. He would much rather sling himself over the back of the horse like he used to. And he walks with a cane now to help him. He's a little bit unsteady. After the Preakness, apparently, I didn't witness it, but I was told this by a couple of different people. Wayne was making his way from where he watched the race to the infield. NBC, Kenny Rice was with him on part of that journey talking to him. But as he was coming down some steps, I guess someone saw an elderly 88-year-old guy, Wayne Lucas, and decided to try to give him some help and held their hand out for Wayne to grab their hand for assistance going down the steps. And Wayne hit him with his cane. he was like, whap! Get out of my way. I don't need your help. He's remarkable.
Now, I mean, honestly, if we're talking about Wayne Lucas winning the Derby on the podcast 5 years from now or 10 years from now, see, that's crazy. He's going to win a race at 98 years old. Well, who thought he could do it at 88? So why not? Anything is possible. He's obviously not going to retire ever. He'll draw his last breath on the backstretch of a racetrack, maybe on that pony. But let's get back to the race itself now. And, as we're all glad that Wayne won, almost everybody is. I didn't see the horse winning the race. I really didn't, for a lot of reasons. His Beyer numbers weren't very good. He appeared to be better at round one turn based on the Pat Day mile. But what I didn't know, two things, that he was still improving and that the racetrack was probably conducive. I don't know if it was a biased racetrack, but you get out front in the mud. That's usually a pretty good way of winning races. So, am I shocked that he won? Not quite, but I was very surprised. I did not like him one bit. Zoe, what happened? Why did he win the race?
I mean, I was as shocked as anyone that he was on the lead, to be perfectly honest. Right. I bet on him in the Pat Day mile because there was a ton of pace in there. I'm like, this is a horse who needs pace to run at. And that's exactly what happened in the Pat Day mile. We come back to the Preakness and all of a sudden he's on the lead. I was like, where the hell did that come from? I don't know. Frankie was strangling his horse in the middle of the racetrack to try and stay off him. Maybe he should have gone on as well with Imagination. I don't think Imagination is good enough, to be perfectly honest. And he's still got some growing up to do. But I didn't see that coming. And, if Wayne Lucas is the story, how about the jockey? I mean, how fantastic was that for him? Watching horse racing in 2019 to winning a classic race in 2024 after only riding for a couple of years. I mean, that's terrific in of itself. And the fact that Wayne had enough moxie and enough balls to leave him on the horse.
Look, I mean, we all know Wayne. We've been around Wayne for decades, and we know that Wayne likes to be in these major races. I don't know if it's as much for himself as it is for wanting to give his owners the experience of being in these major races. And Wayne is certainly one who is willing to take a shot and to run long shots in some of these major races. And it's paid off on occasion, as we have seen. They wanted to get this horse into the Kentucky Derby. They tried hard. They sent him from Oaklawn Park to the Jeff Ruby Stakes in hopes of getting points. And he ran pretty well. It was wide. Actually ran a pretty good race in the Jeff Ruby, but he still didn't have enough points. So they brought him back 2 weeks later and ran him in the Bluegrass Stakes. And that didn't end well. He ran a very dull race in the Bluegrass. So because they didn't have enough points to get him into the Kentucky Derby, they ran him instead on the undercard in the Pat Day Mile. And Jerry Bailey and I went to talk to Wayne before that race. And Wayne said, we tried to get this horse in the Kentucky Derby, but in hindsight, I think this horse is probably going to be better around one turn. And the horse wins the Pat Day Mile. And I went back to watch the race about a half hour ago just to see, did I miss something in the Pat Day Mile? There's something there that I should have seen. And what was interesting about that race is that after a quarter mile, he was on the lead. There were 4 horses stacked across the racetrack, and he was between horses. And it was a lively pace. I mean, they went 44 and change for the first half mile. And then when they hit the turn, he couldn't keep up. And he wasn't taken back. He dropped back. And at the top of the stretch, it looked like he was going into reverse. It looked like at one point he might have been 5th or 6th, maybe 3 lengths off the pace and going the wrong direction. And then suddenly, the last 3/16 of a mile, you know, he just outfinished all the other horses. He finished way better than the other horses. And he finished the Pat Day mile as if he wanted more distance, right? I mean, that's the look that he had during the last part of that race. Okay. So now, Wayne had already told us that we thought the horse would be better around 1 turn. And then suddenly 2 weeks later, we see him not only around 2 turns, but we see him running the longest distance of any race in his life. And the confusing part that horse players had to try to deal with, if this was a trainer who was known for being exceptionally conservative, let's say it was Graham Motion, okay, who runs a horse in the Pat Day mile and comes back 2 weeks later and runs him in the Preakness, okay, you'd be thinking, wow, you know, this is really out of character for Graham Motion. He's so conservative. He must really, really, really think this horse is going to win. But what throws everybody for a curve with Wayne is that he's always so willing to take shots that you don't know if he's running the horse in the Preakness because he's coming off a good race. What the heck? I'll take a chance. The owners deserve the opportunity. The owners deserve the fun. You know, who knows? Or if, you know, if it was because he really, really, really thought that the horse had a great chance to win. The strategy was to go to the lead. That was the strategy in the race for Wayne with Seize the Gray beforehand. And the strategy for the Baffert camp, as Bob told us, he said, I think my horse will be better with a target. And he was hoping that Seize the Gray would go to the lead. All right. So you had the combination of a muddy racetrack. I mean, who knows how much that favored Seize the Gray. Maybe he liked it more than the other horses, potentially really speed favoring. And the third component is they didn't think he had a chance to win. The competition didn't think he had a chance to win. So they just left him alone on the lead. All right, you know, Frankie Dettori, Wayne wants the lead. This is perfect. We'll let that gray sucker just take the lead. We won't pay any attention to him. We'll just sit right, 4 paths outside of him, and we'll have him whenever we want him. I think the whole field thought that way, even at the top of the stretch. And, I mean, what a story it was that this horse just held on and kept going.
Randy, you touched upon something. We're recording this on Tuesday. It'll be in Wednesday's Thoroughbred Daily News. I touched on something that you just brought up. I opined that there isn't another trainer in the country besides Wayne Lukas that would have run this horse in the Preakness after winning the Pat Day mile, coming back in 2 weeks. Added distance, all those factors. And, all the time, all the years I've been doing this podcast and writing, it just drives me crazy that the sport has become where, the extra caution is just, to me, ridiculous. Horses are not meant to run 3-4 times a year. They don't need 8 weeks between races. I mean, it's just, look, I'm not a trainer. I'm not an expert, but that's just common sense to me, especially since when you and I were little kids going to the track, horses would run 25 times a year, type of thing. So, I think Lukas deserves a lot of credit for that. And I think owners should pay more attention to it, because if Lukas he'll win about 12 to 15% this year based on the kind of year he's going. Chad Brown's going to win 25. Okay, Chad Brown has a better winning percentage. But if Chad Brown runs your horse 4 times and Wayne Lukas runs that same horse 12 times, aren't you better off with Wayne Lukas?
Horses are different animals now than they used to be, and every horse is different. They need time. I mean, I'm out there each and every day, and horse welfare is paramount now in this day and age. And some horses can't run back every 2 weeks. It's just an impossible fact. And I know this irks Bill to no end, but that's just plain and simple. It's, yeah.
Oh, Zoe, you drank the Kool-Aid.
I don't think that, in my opinion, just because the 1, 2, 3 finishers in the Preakness Stakes were all coming back in 2 weeks, that Todd Pletcher and Chad Brown and all these other trainers are all of a sudden going to start saying, oh, okay, it's all right to run our horses back in 2 weeks. We'll start doing this more often. And for the people who say, oh, well, this proves that the Triple Crown doesn't need to be changed, the races don't need to be spaced out. The problem is not that horses can't run back in 2 weeks. The problem is that the Preakness field has been dramatically weakened, steadily getting weaker and weaker and weaker because trainers don't want to run back in 2 weeks. That's the issue. It's not whether they can or not, it's that they don't want to. And, by extension, you figure they don't want to because they figure it's not best for their horses. So I don't think it changes the equation of whether or not the Triple Crown spacing needs to be changed. But I did think it was refreshing that the top 3 finishers were all coming back in 2 weeks.
The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Keeneland. The TDN named 2 rising stars this week as Bolt Divine. You take a look at this one. This one looked really good. Cruised home to an easy winner in her debut at Santa Anita this past Saturday. And on Thursday, Donegal Momentum crushed the field of maidens by an easy 8 1/4 lengths on his debut. That's the second TDN rising star for Coolmore's Uncle Mo this month alone. What do they have in common? They are both Keeneland graduates. Make plans to attend this year's Keeneland September sale, which begins on September the 9th. We'll be right back after this message from Keeneland.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the management and staff of Keeneland, I would like to welcome you to the September yearling sale. Good to have you back with us.
The energy at Keeneland Book 1 is unlike any other sale that you'll go to.
It is the marketplace.
The center of the horse universe.
It's electric. You can't replicate the urgency that's at Keeneland September.
Quality in quantity.
Keeneland September Book 1, every breeder's dream.
Can't get out of my mind. I saw him down at OBS for the 2-year-old sale. His breeze was spectacular. And then topped the sale. Everything he did in his career, breaking his maiden sprinting on the dirt.
Very, very impressive debut.
Winning a grade 1, stretching out.
Breezing through the stretch. He's the real deal.
And then the Breeders' Cup at Del Mar.
He's just too good. Corniche wins the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
And then going on and being a champion 2-year-old. Extremely difficult to do.
Obviously, Quality Road has done enough for all of us to understand what he's doing. I thought Wasted Tears was a very, very good mare, Nazarene mare. She obviously won the Ginny Wiley Stakes, also a course record holder in the Ouija board. So really good female family, good sire line, was delighted with him physically and was excited to breed to him.
It's very important for us to breed physical to physical and try to get the best physical cross. We're very happy with the foal we've gotten. He's got a great natural shape to him, a great hip, got a lot of power behind, very nice balance to him, plenty leg. You always like to see a horse have enough leg. Also, he's a very intelligent foal, pricks his ears, has good presence to him.
This is a Corniche filly out of Anima Gemella. Been a standout since she was born. Very strong, very well made, good mover. Really, everything we were hoping for.
He's got a really sharp eye, good shoulder, neck set, nice top line, like the way he finishes out behind, but he really sort of travels over the ground smoothly and just has a real sharpness to him about his body and is exactly what I was hoping for, but we all know that hopes and dreams are not actually what they always pan out to be, so when they pan out, you double down.
This week's Fastest Horse of the Week is brought to you by Audible, one of those fast sires at Windstar Farm. Audible making himself heard as a second crop sire. This week, Audible had 2 new winners, Please Stop Talking and Lucky Speech, and 2 graded stakes placings on Preakness weekend at Pimlico. Called Another Play was 3rd in the Grade 2, Black Eyed Susan, and Cats by 5 finished 2nd in the Grade 3, Chick Lang Stakes. Audible is now the second of the leading second crop sire by earnings, black type winners, graded stakes runners, and graded stakes winners. Fastest Horse of the Week, we don't need to spend too much time on. Seize the Gray at a 100 Beyer speed figure in the Preakness, which topped the list of Beyer performances on an otherwise slow week for graded stakes. Of the 10 graded stakes races run in North America last week, 8 of them were at Pimlico on Friday or Saturday, and Seize the Gray topped the list with that 100. The TDN Writers Room brought to you, as always, by Lynn Green and his Green Group, tax accounting and advisory firm specializing in this thoroughbred industry and especially in saving you money on your taxes.
We're pleased to be joined now by the Green Group guest of the week. It's Michael Behrens. He is the founder and CEO of MyRacehorse.com, and you guys all know what they accomplished over the weekend. The Preakness victory with Seize the Gray, trained by Wayne Lukas. Michael, thanks for joining us. And my first question is about the Lukas situation and the angle with him. A lot of owners over the years have frankly turned away from him. He's too old. The game's kind of passed him by. His winning percentage was going down every single year. What gave you the confidence to pick Wayne Lukas to train this horse?
Well, it started from a lot of nostalgia, I'll tell you. I grew up in Southern California, in Glendora, California, and Mr. Lukas was, on the top of his game, and everything that was good went through his barn, and all the big races that I went to were Lukas. And as I got into my racehorse and I saw him getting some nice horses up at Saratoga and Oaklawn, and I saw what he was doing with a couple of the chances he was getting, I was getting impressed. And obviously, as a huge fan, as kind of living legend of our game, and then seeing him kind of reemerge with a couple of horses that I thought he was really doing well with. When we bought this horse at the Phase 6 sale, I turned to the team and I said, "This is where I want to go." And I just asked them if they thought this was the right type of horse for his program. We know that he's got a certain style and there's a certain type of horse that can fit that program. They gave me the big thumbs up, and that's how it all started.
So the logistics here for Seize the Gray, for people that aren't that familiar with the My Racehorse operation, okay, 5,000 shares were offered at $127 a share. Correct me if I'm wrong about any of this. Sold out within a matter of weeks. 2,570 different owners from 42 states, including 48 from Maryland. How in the hell do you deal with this many owners? Just the sheer logistics of it. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's taken us some time. That's fair. I think we started this business in 2019 under the premise that everything was moving fractional. So my background has been in ad tech and marketing for the last 20 years. I'm not a horse guy. Well, now I'm becoming one. Been a couple of classic wins, but prior to this, it was more ad tech and marketing. And you can see that people were solving ridiculously hard problems by using more modern technology. And so you think about what we have in the mobile phone, and the mobile phone had not been really applied to racehorse ownership. It hadn't been applied to racing in a very innovative way. And we thought that we could curate the crowd, we could bring them together, we can give an amazing experience, 90% driven through a digital environment. And then we would get creative and try to figure out if we could get the last 10%. And that has been super hard. It really has. Bringing people out to the track and getting barn visits and paddock passes and all that kind of good stuff, it isn't easy. But the team's perfected over the last 4 years, and I think we do a pretty darn good job now.
And how much did the late B. Wayne Hughes help with the initial rollout here of My Racehorse and its first sort of leap into public consciousness?
I think help kind of feels like just too passive a word. I had the idea, I had the vision, I got the regulatory approval, and I built the tech. But it was his innovation, his business savvy, his command of this industry and where he could see this going that just took me to a whole nother level. I didn't go to grad school, but I felt like the couple of years that we worked together, I had done it 2 times over. He's an innovator. He's unbelievably savvy when it comes to business. He really, really loved horse racing, right? So his ability to bring his business savvy, his entrepreneurial spirit, and his passion for racing. And then I think what I brought to the table was some innovation, some operational expertise, and kind of our combination was pretty good.
B. Wayne and now D. Wayne. How about that?
Yeah,
exactly.
Right?
Nice exacta.
Yeah. My Racehorse has been called the face of the people, and it really all started with authentic. How do you react when people say, "Oh, My Racehorse, the face of the people"? Because when you guys first came around, I can remember looking at the app on my phone. I'm like, oh, it's kind of interesting because I downloaded it. I'm like, have you heard of this? My Racehorse? Never heard of it. I'm like, that's kind of neat. And then lo and behold, you get a little piece of authentic. You win the Derby. Now you've won the Preakness. You are the face of the people.
Yeah. Being the face of the people, I'll take that all day long. I think that's when we started this, that's exactly what it was. The idea was that when I looked at My Racing Forum, when I went to the races and I saw who owned the horses, and they own countries, and they own big companies, and they own big hedge funds. I couldn't see a reason that we couldn't curate the millions of people that love horse racing. I mean, what was the stats for NBC on Derby? I saw 16.7 million people. There's still a lot of energy and a lot of excitement, and a lot of passion around horse racing. And I thought, let's curate it. Let's go ahead and compete. We can outbid anybody if we can all throw $100 in together. And for the fact that 4 years later you're saying that a few people out there say that we're the face of the people, I'm proud of that.
Michael, apparently you and Wayne Lucas didn't get the memo. You're not supposed to run horses back in 2 weeks. That's can't do that in horse racing anymore. Was that your idea? Was it Wayne's idea? A little bit of both.
It definitely wasn't my idea. I think that, I'm with Mr. Lucas for a reason, and I have enjoyed this journey tremendously. He has shared all the insight and all the experience that has propelled him to the success that he's had. I've had a little bit of a taste of it along this journey. He's completely generous with his thinking and his time and his strategy and what other considerations going into it. So, it wasn't like this binary decisive plan. He lets the horse tell him. He's unbelievable, kind of reactionary to what he's seeing from the competition, from the horse itself. And so he sets out an aggressive target. He's very comfortable continuing to reassess in a highly iterative way. And he keeps you informed about the whole thing. But, we're down in Australia as well, right? We have about 60 horses down in Australia. And this isn't really that uncommon anymore. I spend about a third of my time with the Australian stable. And they have this carnival concept. These horses go on spells for a couple of months, and they come out and they run, every couple of weeks during the carnival, and they get turned back out again. And they compete at the highest level. So, we're seeing it in our Australian stable very, very common. You see it here, it gets the reaction that you just had. But the reality is, I think if you take a step back and look at global racing, it's kind of more us that kind of have this idea that we can't run, every couple of weeks. So maybe we're the outlier.
So when you take an 88-year-old trainer, Michael, an old timer, sorry, Wayne, sorry for saying that, and now you merge him with this newfangled ownership strategy of apps and micro shares and 2,570 owners, you would think that it wouldn't necessarily be a marriage made in heaven. But Wayne seems to get a kick out of it. He's like, I don't know how many people own this horse. I have no idea. This winner's circle is going to be really crowded. How much has he embraced it?
Actually, that was more my concern. Like when you asked originally about going to Mr. Lucas and, kind of at the, maybe the twilight of the career, whatever it may be. I knew he was an amazing horseman. I had no doubt that he was going to take care of this horse and put him in a good spot. I was actually more concerned with what you just brought up right there. It's like, is he going to embrace the idea that we're going to bring 2,000 people and that people are going to show up to the barn once in a while unannounced, and winner circles are going to be crazy, and people are going to be posting all over social media and questioning his decisions, and they do. And I didn't know how that was going to be. And then watching him interact with people, he has been so unbelievably generous with his time. And his time is such a precious commodity. Our owners and our partners absolutely love it. I was at the Alibi breakfast. I watched him this entire weekend. Right? It was really the first time I got to see him live with our partners. And there was so many of our partners out at Preakness, and they were stopping him, and he was telling stories and signing autographs and taking pictures. And he did it with a smile. He did it with thoughtfulness. He took his time. He wasn't dismissive. And it was unbelievable. So, what you saw on the media, that was a microcosm of what he was doing behind the scenes with people he met throughout the whole weekend. It blew me away. I was thrilled for the business. I was thrilled for the partners. I was pleasantly surprised. And then I sat down with him. I don't know, it was the day after or the day before, and we were sitting there and talking with him and his wife. And then he started giving me business ideas on the app. And he's like, hey, you could change this and do this and all this kind of good stuff. So not only is he a Hall of Fame trainer, he seems like a pretty darn good ad tech guy.
Yeah, he's always been ahead of the curve. If you think about when you were watching him from Glendora back in the 80s, 90s, where he had multiple stables on multiple coasts. He's a guy that everyone's based their stables on, people that have multiple stables. Now, as the years have gone on, his have got smaller, but he's always been a guy to embrace people. Like watching him at Oaklawn, bring all the kids into the winner's circle. Like he's a guy that truly loves it. Yeah, he's knocking on a little bit, but to watch him in the winner's circle, I was stood at the top of the chalet when they led the horse in. And, you had a small-ish group of owners all chanting, seize the grey, seize the grey. And for me watching it, it was just such an awesome experience. I just can't imagine how you were feeling that day, watching this guy come in with a horse that you guys had picked out.
Oh yeah. I mean, I got really caught up in it, and I try to be very cognizant and aware that I don't own the horse, that I literally am a conduit, a facilitator to bring the crowd together. They own the horse. It's their horse. They have the equity in the horse. And I try to respect that and appreciate that. But I got to say, when I was up there and I was watching exactly what you just described and him bringing that horse in, I mean, there was definitely a lot of pride for me. I was thrilled. And then I heard the chant, and it was a really cool moment. And then when I looked up over the hedges and I saw another 100 My Racehorse people out there on the hedges, respecting the fact that not everybody can come in the winner's circle and all their joy, it was crazy because like the joy I was feeling, I then saw it across 100 other faces that were there. It was a really cool moment. And then watching Jaime Torres and his joy and his family. I mean, that this game is fun. It's thrilling. We use the word thrill a lot, right? But it also creates a lot of joy.
Well, speaking of that, Michael, I'm going to go back to your reaction in the winner's circle on NBC television. I think the word surreal has become a cliche. It's thrown around too much. But if it ever fit, you looked like you didn't know what planet you were on. I mean, you were shaking your head. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. You know, if I would have asked you what day of the week it was, you would have said Thursday. So, you know, if you could expound on that, the feelings that resonated with you and what it felt like to be standing in that winner's circle and also moments earlier seeing this horse across the wire first.
I mean, a couple of things, right? This is my business, right? My business is to build my racehorse and try to bring many people in it. So I spent the weekend trying to make sure that I delivered on my business, and I got the partners access to what they get access to. And I got content for all the people who are at home and are having to watch, you know, their horse run the Preakness at home, and, you know, getting the event stuff and working with the horseman's relations and making sure we had that all squared away and working with Wayne and getting updates. And so I go into it, you know, understand the fact that this is my business. I have 2,570 shareholders that I have to basically, you know, provide value to. And that's what I do when I come to the races. But at that moment, I kind of forgot about the business. I just won the Preakness, and it sunk in that we just won the Preakness. That, you know, that the whole group won the Preakness. That I don't even let my mind on a day like that kind of go to what if we win. It's so much more about kind of planning for the day, making sure it goes well, all the logistics having come in. So I think what happened was I didn't really give myself permission to think about what if we win. And so it just didn't prepare for it. I didn't see it. It just kind of came out of the blue. And so that reaction was just kind of shock. And, you know, we did it once. It felt like lightning in the bottle in 2020. And really in 2020, it was amazing, but it was COVID restricted year. And, you know, my wife wasn't there to celebrate with me. I didn't have hundreds of partners out there. You know, it was a little bit of an odd celebration. It was amazing to win the Kentucky Derby, but there was something different about it. And so to have it with the crowd that we had, the number of partners that are out there, to be such an important race, you know, with Lucas, you know, a childhood hero of mine, right? I don't know. Yeah, I was overwhelmed. I look back on it kind of a little embarrassed, but you know, it was raw, it was real, and I was just happy.
So let's talk business now for a second. I haven't looked this up. I'm just operating on memory here. In 2020 with Authentic, when Wayne Hughes allowed you guys to buy in to Authentic, was it like 12% share?
12.5%, yeah.
12%, okay. So you were a minority owner. All right. So now fast forward, you're at the Preakness as a 100% owner of this particular horse, right? And the attention that you got with Seize the Gray and you being on the podium and everybody hearing about My Racehorse and all the owners and NBC interviewing some of the owners about their experiences. How much do you think this can do for My Racehorse going forward?
I mean, if the last 48 or now 72 hours is any indication, this is the step change that businesses look for. I mean, the Derby is what people would basically believe would be that step change. But you're right. We own 12.5% of it. You know, it wasn't 100% ours. We didn't get all the coverage. It wasn't just about us, and it shouldn't have been. I mean, P. Wayne Hughes has done so much for this game. It should have been about him and what he accomplished, and that was his Kentucky Derby win and Spencer Farms. And I think that was fair and just. So, it was a good moment for us. It brought us a lot of credibility, but we also paid a lot of money to buy in after he was already a grade 1 winner into that horse. We had to buy in with, kickers for what he wound up performing. So the financials basically maybe were not as attractive as people would think when you buy a racehorse that goes off and does that. You did share the spotlight. And in this situation, this is a horse that we did buy. We bought it for $300,000 at a yearling sale that we spent all, days going up and doing inspections and picking that horse. And people took the risk to buy an unraced horse. They put that money in. So not only do we get all the attention, the publicity, but we also are going to be able to capitalize this financially a lot more than we were on Authentic. Now, it's not fair to say Authentic. Authentic, we haven't capitalized on financially quite yet because it was set up to be a stallion deal. So if obviously his babies hit, that could be extremely financially rewarding. But I think in this situation, winning that race and being able to have a horse that we paid a relatively modest fee in this day and age, it kind of seems still odd to say $300,000 is a modest fee. But the fact that we did pay $300,000, the fact that everybody's going to benefit both in the racing and on the stallion deal if one comes together, which you think out of Arrogate and what he's accomplished the last 3 weeks, there's a good chance that happens. I'm super excited that part of the business is now going to get its day in the sun.
It's just so cool to think that you own 100% of that horse. All right, so let's talk about the nuts and bolts. I am stupid enough not to have bought a share in Seize the Grey. However, I'm still kicking myself for that. If I had bought a share in Seize the Grey, how much would it have cost? And how much would I get for winning the Preakness and then a stallion deal? Let's talk about the money, like for my minor outlay to begin with.
Perfect. So you can, and just for anybody who doesn't know how the MyRacehorse model works, right? We don't limit you to buying one share, but it's like the stock market, right? If we want to buy Tesla, maybe I buy one share, Bill wants 10, Randy wants 100 shares, right? We just basically increase it predicate based on whatever, we want. But the minimum is our share price. So the share price for him was 127, right? So it was 127 to buy in. And that basically covered the cost of the horse. It covered mortality insurance for 2 years. It covered training for 2 years, vet care for 2 years, any administrations and accounting fees that go with owning a horse, because nobody pays another dollar when they invest in a MyRacehorse. We have to collect everything up front, because the one thing which is really difficult about our model is that nobody wants to give racehorse ownership a try if there's any potential ongoing liability. I don't care if it's $1 a month. That is like game change. All the focus groups that we did, right? I'll go ahead and try this racehorse ownership thing, but don't ever ask for another dollar, right? So we have to pre-fund it all. So that 127 included everything. So anything that's not for the horse actually just goes in a cash account. It just sits there. We pay off the bills, and when Lucas sends his bill, and the transport companies and the vets and all that stuff, they send their bills. It's taken out of that. And if there's anything left over at the end, then we just kind of give that back to the original investors. So the 127 was for the horse and that money, which is their money, but we just have to pre-collect it, right? So he won his maiden race. He then also won the Pat Day Mile. So going into the race, he had already collected $70 in dividends. So far, you had gotten $70 in your MyRacehorse app paid back to you based on excess money. So when I say excess money, we have that cash reserve account. When there's more than we think we need for the next 2 years of training, we just pay it off. So really what we're paying out is just excess cash in the company. And the company is just one thing. It's a horse. So when that horse produces a bunch of revenue, there's more than enough money to pay, the excess cash gets paid out. So we had just won a race 2 weeks ago, to Bill's point. So there was all the money was in the account. There was no need to keep any of it. So basically $156 is getting paid out on that race alone. So you have the 70 before, you have the 156 there. So now you're 226 on a 127 share. And you haven't even got into where the real money in horse racing comes nowadays, especially in the US, which is a stallion deal. So, I'm not even going to throw out a number there. But let's say that, at this point, let's just for simplicity, if it was, $10 million, you're looking at $1,000 per person gross. There's going to be expenses and things like that to get there, but that's a pretty decent payoff for 127.
Michael, before we let you go, I've talked to you about this before. I'm a customer. I've invested twice in my racehorse. Neither one of those horses could outrun Randy, unfortunately, but that's part of the game. But I want to, rather than ask you a question, I just want to make a statement. And I'm not saying this just because you're on, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it, even though my horses were not successful. And you guys doing, when the question, there was Zoe or Randy, I don't remember what it was, like, how on earth do you handle all of these people? You do a really good job. Always felt informed about what was going on, and at each step along the way, what to expect. Now, because I just gave you a lot of free publicity, maybe you can tip me off on who's the one I should invest in now. So.
You know what's so crazy about that? We bought 2 horses at that sale, and we surround ourselves with really good horsemen. Both those horses went down to waiver tree, and we've got our bloodstock team and racing team looking at it. And it was the other horse. It was an audible filly that a lot of people thought was going to be the one that might be the stakes horse. He's the Gray was kind of this kind of lazy dude. He just didn't really do a lot. You never could kind of outwork him, but he just kind of did enough and didn't show it. So, I always, my friends and family will call and try to say, oh, which is the right one? I mean, in this game, everyone we buy, we think is going to be a star. And then you just never know which one's going to surprise you. Sometimes they grow up. I mean, if you look at Seize the Gray, it's not the same horse, right? You look at his physical, stature now, right? It's not the same horse. Sometimes it's the heart, right? Sometimes it's just their heart and their desire to win. Others just don't love racing, whatever it may be. You don't know. There's so many intangibles, which I think will make this game so special. We can try everything. We bring the best people together. We have to make the most well-informed decisions. And at the end of the day, there's just these uncontrollable forces that allow Saturday to happen. And so, I don't know. I think that's what makes it so, so thrilling.
So I have one additional question, Michael. I'm just curious about this. I mean, way back when, Cott Campbell was one of the original people that was involved in fractional ownership of racehorses through Dogwood Stable. And now there are more partnerships like that than you can even keep track of. 5, 6, 7 years ago, the Avengers sort of pioneered the concept of combining a lot of very wealthy owners into one big ownership group, buying a bunch of yearlings and hoping a few of them scored big as stallions. Now that MyRacehorse has experienced this success, are you expecting some competition in that sphere?
Definitely. I mean, I think that when you look, it is not an easy endeavor, and I think it takes a significant amount of capital to build. So the one obstacle we have is this is, to be fair, thoroughbred racing is not really on the radar for many entrepreneurs and investors in the Silicon Valley. You're just not seeing a lot of people basically saying this is where we're going to deploy our capital and we're going to bring some disruption and innovation here. We're into this business for well over $10 million in terms of building out the infrastructure, the regulatory, construct. So this is not something that you can just be passionate and excited by and you see an opportunity and want to go for it. If you want to build out the legal infrastructure, the tech infrastructure, the staff infrastructure, the building of the brand, it's going to take an investment. Now, I think when somebody can take a step back and see actually how big the global horse racing market is, and they can see what can be accomplished, but it's no easy feat. So if someone's going to come in, they're going to have to get really well funded. That will be a barrier to entry. So I feel like we've got a pretty good head start, but no one's just going to let us have it. And I'll take it for a little while and we'll enjoy it for a couple of years, but I'm sure in a couple of years, somebody else will be on here and they'll be doing something similar. And hopefully we continue to execute well and people enjoy buying with MyRacehorse, and we're a leader in this space, but I don't think we'll be solo.
Michael, I got one more. I'm in Maryland at the Timonium sale. It's Tuesday. Now, you guys already teamed up with Ramiro Restrepo, Marquis, and the Delgados to buy a $450,000 Bolt Doro filly yesterday. Are you going again today? Can I get my hand up on something, or are you guys just going to buy everything here?
Yeah, we'll let you have a few. We're not going to buy them all, but we're not done shopping yet. So that was a really nice Bolt Doro filly. Really nice to partner with them. I didn't know them very well, but kind of met at the sale. They were really high in the filly as well, and it's nice to have partners that appreciate what we're doing. We also kind of have a common kind of belief that the horse was potentially a really good one. So excited to be with them. Bought one later in the day as well with Peter Lydell, who we've partnered with before, and we got a couple more on the shopping list today. I mean, the app has been going crazy. I mean, I don't think you guys can hear it, but it just keeps dinging with new people signing up and downloading. So it's been really fun for me as an entrepreneur to see this many more people now getting involved and wanting to get involved in horse racing. Rising tides lift all ships. So if a moment like that can bring a few more thousand people into the game, they go tell one more friend, the network effect takes over. Like, that's really what it's all about. You need network effect right now. And I think we have an opportunity where 2,570 people are all going to go tell 10 people. If a couple of those people try it out, just kind of do the compounding math, it gets fun pretty quick.
Right.
And knowing Wayne, he is reminding you that he will be available.
He has already told me that he is looking to load up on some more 2-year-olds.
There you go. Well, Michael, congratulations on your success in the Preakness. And it was such a great story. I mean, we wanted to, of course, see a horse win the Triple Crown. It didn't happen. But I think the second best story was Wayne Lukas winning the Preakness Stakes after all these years. And you were a big part of that. Thanks for joining us on the TDN podcast. And best of luck with the horses you buy at Timonium. And best of luck with Seize the Gray in the Belmont Stakes.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
As the Green Group Guest of the Week, Michael Behrens will receive a free 1-hour tax consultation with the Green Group. Lynn Green has always been a firm believer that success in sports translates well into success in the entrepreneurial business world. And as an active participant in the sport of thoroughbred racing, he uses his experience to help others in the industry navigate all those complicated tax rules. For more information on how the Green Group can help you, visit www.greenco.com.
When it comes to the horse industry, tax laws are complicated and unique. That is why most people overpay on their taxes. Why not get a second opinion from the top-rated accounting and tax firm in the thoroughbred industry? With over 800 clients in the horse business alone, the Green Group has the expertise to save you taxes. There is a reason the most successful owners, breeders, trainers, vets, and horsemen use the Green Group as their tax advisors. We save you taxes. Over the past 40 years, the Green Group founder, Len Green, has owned and bred some of the best racehorses in the history of the sport. His DJ stable competes at the highest level and has received the game's most prestigious honors. Len Green's in-depth, hands-on industry knowledge, combined with current-edge tax-saving strategies, produces positive tax-saving results for clients. Take advantage of this special offer. The Green Group will give you a complimentary and confidential review of your tax return. Contact us at 732-634-5100 or visit our website at www.greenco.com.
Don't miss Penn National's signature event, Penn Mile Night, Friday, May 31st at Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse. There are 2 Pennsylvania bred stakes, each with a $100,000 purse, plus the $150,000 Penn Oaks. It's all capped off by the $400,000 Grade 3 Penn Mile. Before the races, don't miss our special meet and greet with our guest race caller Larry Colmus, Friday, May 31st at Penn National. First post 5 p.m.
This week, we welcome back a sponsor from last year, the Penn Mile. Friday, May 31 is Penn Mile Day at Penn National. It features 6 stakes races topped by the $400,000 Grade 3 Penn Mile. The Penn Mile noms include the top 4 finishers from the Grade 2 American Turf at Churchill. That's Tricari, Formidable Man, Lagnios, and Gugino, along with Neat, Twirling Point, and my personal favorite, the Jersey-bred star, Bookham Dano. Oh, I'd love to see him running that race. The day also features the Penn Oaks, where Cherie DeVoe has nominated her Grade 1 winner, She Feels Pretty, the Lifeguard, where Butch Reed has nominated Nisi Marie and Morning Matchaboo, and the PA bred with Anticipation Stakes. Well, we've looked behind us at the Triple Crown races, the Derby and the Preakness. Now let's look ahead to see what's going to go on in the Belmont Stakes, as well as maybe project what's going to happen with this 3-year-old group through the rest of the year. I mean, right now, obviously, the division is way wide open, led by Mystic Dan. I suppose if the Eclipse Awards were voted on today, he would certainly be the winner. But you have Seize the Gray, and now you got the new fresh horses coming into the Belmont Stakes. So I'm wondering who is going to be Randy, last year at this time, you were the president of the Two Phils fan club. because you looked at the first 2 legs of the Triple Crown. He didn't run the Preakness, but he ran in the Ohio Derby, and you were convinced that this was the guy. Okay, he got injured, so we never got to see if you were right about that or not. But who is this year's second half horse? I mean, the obvious one to me is Sierra Leone. We'll see how he does at the Belmont. Fierceness, you never know with him. I think he's going to bounce back and run big in the Belmont. Why wouldn't he? He runs well every single other race. Now it's the on race for him. But just give us your thoughts on this crop going forward. And, come October, leading up to the Breeders' Cup, which one of these guys are we talking about?
It's pretty odd when you go back and you look at all of the Triple Crown prep races and the Derby and the Preakness so far. I mean, I don't know if it's odd or not, but seemingly every winner has been the horse that gets this great trip. As Mystic Dan in the Kentucky Derby, Seize the Gray in the Preakness. I mean, you can go back through a lot of the prep races as well, and the horses that get the trip have been the ones winning, and that's why you have so many different winners of these 3-year-old races as the season progresses. I think right now the 3-year-old division is wide open. Sierra Leone is the only one that really seems to be able to put good races together back to back, regardless of trip. And of course, you got the whole thing with Sierra Leone about the lugging in that's got to be fixed. But to me, Sierra Leone and Fierceness look like the two major domos in the Belmont Stakes. Fierceness probably, I think, might be able to be the controlling speed. And if that's the case, he'll be awfully tough to beat, even if Sierra Leone fires. Looks like a pretty full field. I'll be surprised. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll be surprised if Mystic Dan comes back and runs in the Preakness after having run in the first 2 legs. Kidding McPeak is not, immune to gambling and rolling the dice and being aggressive with his horses. So aggressive, in fact, that he's even said that he would run the filly Torpedo Anna in the Belmont, perhaps, if Mystic Dan does not run. And then you would have some of your other suspects. Honor Marie had a really rough trip in the Kentucky Derby. He was pretty much wiped out early, although he's a come from behind her anyway. They're talking about running him. Dornock, Antiquarian, the Wine Steward, Mindframe, possibly. I think that horse of Fletcher's that has started off his career with a couple of big wins, including on the undercard Derby weekend. So, yeah, it should be a pretty good Belmont at 1.25 miles, which I think will inflate the field a little bit.
And I believe that's really going to be the key, is going to be the 1.25 miles, because if it's 1.5 miles, you're probably going to struggle to find 8 horses to run in it against Sierra Leone. But at 1.25 miles, you've got all kinds of people wanting to try in 1.25 miles, especially at Saratoga. We're not talking about 1.25 miles at Belmont. We're talking about 1.25 miles at Saratoga. I'll be extremely interested to see if Torpedo Anna does indeed run, because she'll be the pace of the race if she does. And we're obviously filming this on Tuesday, so things can change even before this airs. But fillies in the Belmont have proven to do very, very well over the years. Sierra Leone comes in with the good work. We'll show that in just a little bit from XB TV. I would imagine he'll run in some different equipment. But you know what? When he works in the morning, he stays pretty straight. I think he's looking for the rail more than anything. So the only thing that could really help him out is if he ever gets drawn on the rail, just stay there. Don't try and go around horses. Let him lug in on the inside rail and perhaps change some equipment. But I believe it may be the best Belmont at 1.25 miles that we've seen in a very long time. I'm really looking forward to it.
We didn't mention Seize the Gray. I mean, Wayne has already said he'll probably run in the Belmont if he comes out of it well. I think Fierceness would be the speed of the race instead of Torpedo Anna, my personal opinion. I think the only reason they were on the lead in the Oaks with Torpedo Anna is because she drew inside. She broke well. There wasn't a lot of other competing speed in there, which that wasn't really her typical MO, although she certainly ran a hell of a race on the lead. Fierceness, I think they pretty much, I don't want to say they know, because in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, he said just a little off the pace. But after the Kentucky Derby, I would think they want him on the lead, if at all possible, in the Belmont.
Now, Randy, after the trip Seize the Gray had in the Preakness, why would he not be a pace factor going after Fierceness?
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about Seize the Gray. I was thinking about some of the other horses in there. But yeah, the way he ran, a lot's going to depend on post position. Mm-hmm. If Fierceness is drawn inside of Seize the Gray, then no pun intended, I think they'll try to seize the lead with Fierceness. But if it's if the shoe's on the other foot and it's Seize the Gray drawn inside of Fierceness, they might try to work out another trip like they had in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, where Fierceness is sitting just outside of one horse on the lead. And maybe we'll see the Fierceness that we saw then. Like you say, it seems like every other race for him.
Mm-hmm.
The TDN Writers Room is brought to you not only by the Penn Mile, but also by the Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association. The PHBA's 45th Annual Iroquois Awards were presented on May 10th, and Angel of Empire received dual honors as the 2023 PA Bred Horse of the Year, as well as the champion 3-year-old male. Angel of Empire, of course, won the Arkansas Derby, was third in the Kentucky Derby. His earnings last year of nearly $1.5 million also topped the list among all PA breds. Angel of Empire, owned by the Albaugh family stable, and was bred by Forgotten Land Investment and by Black Diamond Equine. Other divisional PA bred champions included the 2022 PA Bred Horse of the Year, Caravel, who for the second straight year was named champion older female, champion turf female, and champion female sprinter. For the complete list of PA Bred winners, visit pabred.com.
The state of Pennsylvania has the best breeders program in the entire United States.
When you buy a yearling, it's a little bit like buying a lottery ticket. And we are trying to provide the lottery ticket that the likelihood is to hit the jackpot.
Angel of Empire wins the Arkansas Derby and wins it clear. Uncle Heavy late, it's a photo finish.
Pennsylvania and the PHBA have the best state-bred program in the country, bar none.
The winner, Uncle Heavy. He's a 3-year-old bred in Pennsylvania.
With some of the fullest fields in the country and quality racing year-round, there's never been a better time to reap the rewards of breeding and racing in Kentucky. Purse money in Kentucky is at an all-time high, as is average purse per race, outpacing California, Florida, and New York. Kentucky breds. Breed them, raise them, race them. We all win.
The focus of the racing world last week, of course, was Maryland, but the winners of the graded Maryland Sprint and Chick Lang and Gallarette and Pimlico Special and Black-Eyed Susan and Preakness were all bred, drum roll please, in Kentucky. Actually, no drum roll was necessary. That's to be expected. On Friday, Gunsong became the 15th Black-Eyed Susan winner in the last 16 years to be bred in Kentucky. One of those years an Ontario bred snuck in there. And Seize the Gray was the 10th straight Kentucky bred winner of the Preakness and the 18th in the last 19 years. Congratulations to their connections. And remember, Kentucky breds, own them, breed them, race them. We all win.
Well, there was some news off the racetrack during Preakness week, and it involved trainer George Weaver. And a couple weeks ago, we found out that Haiwu had accused him of having a racehorse that had metformin in his blood. So he was able to send out for a split sample. The hope among his team was that that split sample would not show the drug in the horse's system, but it did. So that was the last grasp at that time. There are some more things they can do legally, but as we speak now, he's shut down. He cannot run. He cannot train. I believe he's got about 75 horses, and they have to be distributed to other trainers. We've had the same debate on this show numerous times, and the same thing comes up, and I don't have all the answers. But I do know this. George Weaver doesn't cheat. He's as honest a guy as you could find. You know, and sometimes, maybe we need to be more careful of this, that who are the bad guys and who are the good guys. But you know what? No, I'm okay with this. He's one of the good guys. And the fact now that he's facing a possible 2-year suspension for a drug that is very common in usage in humans. It's the third most prescribed drug in the country. The groom of the horse was on metformin. I know Haiwu has a tough job. I know they're trying to clean up the sport, but there's been too many of these. You're going after guys that didn't do anything wrong and involve environmental contamination. Like I said, I don't know what the answer is, because you can't say we're going to pick out on our own who are the good guys and who are the bad guys and just take a wild guess. Okay, George Weaver is a good guy. And then if it had been Jorge Navarro, hadn't tested for something like this, we'd say, oh, he's a bad guy, throw the book at him. But Randy, it's disturbing. And I'm sure when it's all said and done, he won't have to serve 2 years, but he might have to serve 6 months or something, when I think every ounce of conventional wisdom and common sense tells you he's not guilty.
Well, hopefully he won't even have to serve 6 months. I mean, we all know George Weaver. We all like George Weaver. But look, it's not as if HISA is going after trainers. It's not like they're saying, okay, we're going to go after this George Weaver guy. Okay. The horse tested positive for metformin, which is a banned substance. And it was a banned substance even before HISA and HIWU came into existence. I mean, I think one of the things that we're seeing since HISA came online, I think we're seeing how bad the post-race testing was around the country prior to HISA, right? I mean, they tested supposedly for metformin for years. And the positives for metformin, with the same level you would think of environmental contamination, right? The same people taking diabetes drug, it's very rare to see a metformin positive. And now all of a sudden, with the enhanced testing, I think what you're seeing is, obviously a lot more people testing positive for something like this. I mean, like you said, as much as we like George Weaver, you can't try to separate good guys from bad guys ahead of time. All right. These are good guys. They're going to be okay. We'll just give them a little slap on the wrist. These are the bad guys. If it happens to them, sorry. Right. I mean, there is no known therapeutic use for metformin in horses, which is why it's on the banned list. It's really kind of up in the air, really, whether it's got any performance enhancing qualities or not. If you Google metformin, it's all over the board. I don't think most people believe there's any performance enhancing qualities to it. Certainly don't believe that's why it was in George Weaver's horse's system. But look, I mean, in a situation like this, I mean, HISA and HIWU have already adjusted some of the rules to make it easier, to make it less expensive for trainers to contest this and say, look, the groom that took care of the horse is a diabetic. Here are all his prescriptions over the years. This was environmental contamination. I'm sure that's what Drew Malika and his attorney and George Weaver are doing right now. And I'm pulling for George Weaver, just like I know you two guys are. But the simple fact of the matter is that horse racing is in this spot right now with HISA, with HIWU, with enhanced testing, with more serious rules, because the sport of horse racing did not clean up its own act over the years. And the state racing commissions were woefully inadequate in enforcing drug regulations. This is where we're at. And, that's the bottom line. And hopefully George Weaver can fight this and come out on the right end of it as much as possible.
What he said, exactly what he said, Randy. And you hit the nail on the head with the enhanced testing, because I don't have diabetes. I'd never heard of metformin. I'm like, what the hell is that? And now all I'm hearing is metformin. And yes, it started with Jonathan Wong. Jonathan's been out on the shelf since February. No one's screaming for him. Maybe they should have started screaming for him. Maybe George Weaver should have started screaming for him back in February. I truly believe that they're going to try and figure something out, at least with metformin. The one thing we've seen with HIWU and HISA is that they're adaptable and they have been able to change things around. Love them or hate them, but you hit the nail on the head with the advanced testing, enhanced testing, and the fact that horse racing itself has proven over and over the years that we can't police ourselves. We've been inadequate. We have not been able to police ourselves. So they've come in. Things are going to change. I truly believe that George Weaver's going to get turned around. Yeah, it might serve 30 days. Let's hope that is going to happen. And we're going to see the contamination with metformin, the third largest prescribed drug in the world right now. They're just going to X that off the sheet. That's what I'm hoping for.
He was the 7th person to get a metformin positive. Right. And, a lot of the other people would be in the same group where we would all sit around. Trainer X is a good guy. He never would have done anything like this. I do have one suggestion, especially Randy, that you said that you've researched it and looked at that nobody seems to be on the same page whether or not it's a performance enhancing drug. So, I mean, it's not like EPO or something like that, right, where you just know that it was put in the horse's system for no other reason than to get him to run faster. How about taking this particular drug and recategorizing it to the controlled substances, which are no big deal. When a guy gets a positive for that, they usually get like 5 days or something like that. And if George Weaver got a 5-day suspension for metformin, we'd say that's unfortunate, but you don't have to disband your entire barn. You get served the 5 days and everything will be fine. So I think that's something that HISA/HIRU needs to look at.
And it might wind up that way. I mean, Lisa Lazarus has been quoted as saying that one reason metformin is categorized where it's at is because of the ambiguity about whether or not it could have any performance-enhancing qualities. Perhaps in the future, they'll put things on a scale and they'll weigh that uncertainty with all of these environmental contaminations from a commonly prescribed drug, and they'll decide to do exactly what you said. But in the meantime, they've given trainers the avenue to try to fight this thing, and hopefully George Weaver can come out on the right end of it.
He went out a winner, which is good to see. Crimson Advocate.
At Gulfstream Park, that's right.
Yep.
And a little stake there.
Do want to remind you that the TDN Writers Room is brought to you by XBTV. Now, we touched on this earlier. The XBTV Work of the Week is not only domestic product, but also Sierra Leone, seen working here together at Saratoga this past Saturday. Now, Sierra Leone is on the inside. Chad must have been listening to me. Put this horse on the inside. He's in the yellow shirt, not lugging in, and he's working along with domestic product, who is on the outside. He's always the flashier workhorse of the two, and they zip round there, no problem whatsoever. You're watching the work, you're thinking that domestic product has got him right at the wire. But as always, Sierra Leone pops his head down to the ground and gallops out very nicely in front. Sierra Leone looks like he's Belmont bound, and we don't know where we'll see domestic product next time out, but they sure look good here.
All the thrills. Fraction of the bills. Experience the power of the partnership. Change your life, make new friends, and compete at the highest level of thoroughbred racing. West Point Thoroughbreds, the gold standard in racing partnerships. Visit westpointtb.com.
The TDN Writers Room also brought to you by West Point Thoroughbreds, which has been active this week, along with Zoe, along with Michael Behrens at MyRacehorse, and the Fasig-Tipton Mid-Atlantic sale of 2-year-olds in training at Timonium. You can see all of West Point's latest purchases at westpointtb.com. Now looking ahead on Saturday, West Point's 5-year-old German-bred mare Atomic Blonde tries to turn the tables on Chop Chop in the $250,000 Kirtana Stakes at Churchill Downs at 1.5 miles on the turf. Chop Chop and Atomic Blonde finished 1-2 recently in the Bewitched Stakes at Keeneland just last month. The European import Atomic Blonde, owned in partnership by West Point as well as trainer Christophe Clement. Atomic Blonde is seeking her first graded victory, but has placed in 6 graded stakes, 4 of those in the United States. To learn how you can join the West Point family and perhaps be vaulted into the world of instant camaraderie, visit westpointtb.com.
Well, that's a wrap on this week's show, and I want to thank my partners, Zoe Cadman and Randy Moss. I want to thank our producers, Katie Petruniak, Anthony LaRocca, and Aaliyah LaRocca, and our new sponsor, Dude Wipes. We'll see you next week.